Bloodline, El Salvador, Chapter 9. Juan and Enrique were sitting on 100 pounds of Mexican green bud when they got back to Los Angeles. The final step in the process was to sell their stash to the highest bidder. Every night, Enrique lay awake in bed, fantasizing about opening a leather attaché case filled to the brim with stacks of $100 bills. Every night, he got more and more uptight because the product just sat there in the steamer trunk going nowhere. Enrique knew that there was a whole lot of jail time built into that much weed. He wanted it out of his and Nadia's cramped little apartment, like right now. No one doubted the size of Juan and Enrique's huevos when it came to risking it all on Mexican dope deals and interstate transportation of narcotics. However, now they were in the phase of the operation where connections were more important than reckless action. Enrique was the undisputed master of intimidation, but a salesman he was not. Juan realized the daunting task of moving a steamer trunk full of weed. After the initial euphoria of pulling off the score began evaporating, Juan started thinking about the magnitude of selling that much dope. He knew that, for all practical purposes, they had zero quality connections in the Los Angeles area. All their acquaintances were nickel and dime lowlifes they had peddled joints to in downtown parks. Those fools were lucky if they had $3 for a pinner, let alone thousands of dollars for a large shipment. To make this thing work, Juan knew that he was going to have to step up to the plate. Might as well start working on his salesmanship skills now. If he could convince his local homie to cede some control without taking a knife in the ribs from the aforementioned homie, he could sell anything. Finally, Juan decided that it was time for a serious heart-to-heart discussion with Enrique. The next night, Juan and Enrique were sharing a joint on the rooftop of a deserted warehouse in downtown L.A. Juan came directly to the point. "Yo, Enrique, you been thinking about how we're gonna move all this shit?" "What you talking about? That's all I think about. I go to sleep thinking about it. I wake up thinking about it. I think about it while I'm taking a shit. Damn, hombre, who wouldn't be thinking about it?" Yeah, well, that's cool," Juan said, his eyelids at half-mast from the weed. Juan cocked his head downward, pressed his lips together, and thought, subtlety ain't gonna cut the cake here. "You know what, man? You're a badass enforcer, and you ain't afraid of shit, but what, hombre? What you trying to say?" returned Enrique sharply, his black eyes a glistening slit in the moonlight. Uh-oh, here we go, thought Juan. Wild man's on the verge of getting stupid. Better talk my way out of this one quick. Think, motherfucker, think. "What I'm thinking, man, is we all got our skills. Serious business. When it comes to enforcing and hardcore action, you the man. I'd follow you to hell and back, but we're in a different phase of the operation. Know what I mean?" Enrique didn't say anything. Juan could feel those glittering black eyes sizing him up, making a decision. Juan was also close to making a decision. His overriding impulse was to choose the flight decision. No, that would be the wimp's way out, Juan thought. He took a deep breath and took the plunge. "I think I'm going to have to take over moving the product," said Juan. "We have to start mingling, going to some parties, meeting people. I mean, you can hang with me, but I do the talking." Again, those glittering black eyes were sizing him up. Juan felt his skin crawl as he stared fixedly down at the black tar paper of the roof. It seemed like an eternity before Enrique spoke. Enrique finally said simply, "All right, hombre, you got a plan. It's cool." Juan breathed an inward sigh of relief. He turned his head so that Enrique couldn't see the relieved smile playing on his lips. So, party they did. South L.A., East L.A., you name the inner-city place, Juan and Enrique were making their appearances in some of the most uncomfortable, volatile get-togethers imaginable. The houses full of homies, smoking crack, ice, PCP, and everything in between made for one heck of a disaster waiting to happen. Badass as Enrique was, even he wished this thing could be done with. Juan was none too impressed with the guest list of potential clients. The vast majority of the party-goers were too strung out to talk coherently, much less take care of business. Most of their sales were $100 three-finger baggies of bud. Juan knew that at this pace they would be peddling their 100 pounds for the next decade or so. Not to mention the fact that he didn't like the exposure of selling to so many people. Sooner or later, their luck would run out and they would sell to some undercover cop. However, there was one Americanized Hispanic guy hanging at a party in East Los who was a distinct possibility, in Juan's opinion. At another business level, Juan might have considered him competition because the guy was peddling small baggies of bud to the homeboys at the party. Now that Juan and Enrique were in the big leagues, they were a cut above all that penny ante stuff. Juan sized him up, making mental plans of how he should make the initial contact. The guy looked halfway educated. Well, at least he had no visible tattoos or scars. That probably meant that he was halfway educated, right? Unfortunately, Enrique beat Juan to the punch, making his trademark initial contact, which was confrontational to say the least. Speaking in Spanish to Mr. Americanized Hispanic guy, Enrique suddenly snarled, "What you looking at, puto?" Juan groaned inwardly, staring at Enrique in disbelief. Motherfucker, you could fuck up a shit sandwich, he thought bitterly. It only got worse. Juan saw a flash of steel in Enrique's hand as Enrique closed the distance between his completely innocent victim and cut off any possible avenue of escape. In an instant, Enrique had him pinned against the door with an elbow across his throat, and the knife blade snaked up the terrified guy's left nostril. He looked something like a fish yanked out of the water on the end of a hook, his eyeballs wildly darting about, his mouth wordlessly opening and closing in a desperate effort to survive. Whoa, homeboy, the Americanized Hispanic guy finally stammered in panicked English. Hey, I'm just out having a good time, doing a little partying, you know what I'm saying? This was obviously not to be a war of words. With Enrique's limited knowledge of English and the Americanized Hispanic guy's limited knowledge of Spanish, it had all the makings of a physical battle. Juan already knew who would win unless he could step in and neutralize the wild man. "Despacio, Enrique," Juan said, in a sharp, authoritative tone. He quickly strode over to Enrique and draped his arm around Enrique's shoulders, steering him firmly away from the terrified Americanized Hispanic guy. "Come on, man, chill," he whispered urgently into Enrique's ear. "This guy's ready for the big sale. I've been checking him out. He's been selling baggies all night. Be cool and walk away. Let me handle him." Enrique threw off Juan's arm with a snarl and spun on his heel, striding angrily outside. The Americanized Hispanic guy was effusively grateful, stammering his thanks in various ways over and over. "Oh man, thanks dude, you saved my ass. Homeboy was gonna cut my shit up. Man, oh man, god damn, holy shit." He kept up a similar line of relieved post-panic babble until Juan finally had to wave his arms in the air to get a word in edgewise.